Most people think the ocean is scary because of what might swim past you. Sharks, giant squid, things with teeth and speed and instincts you can't bargain with. But professional commercial divers, they're not afraid of the animals. They're afraid of the places, the structures, the machinery, the black water where your light only reaches a few meters. And everything beyond that feels like a room full of people you can't see. Tonight, I have 3 disturbing deep-sea encounters reported by professional commercial divers. These are not "I saw a monster" campfire stories. They're the kind of stories divers tell each other when the job is done. The gear is off, and nobody wants to admit how close they came to not coming back. Names and identifying details have been changed, but the events, the fear, and the way the ocean can turn ordinary work into a nightmare, that part is real. So if you're listening at night, and you can hear the pipes in your walls, or the hum of your building, just remember, there are people working far below the surface right now, in places where up is the only direction that matters. Story 1. The knocking on the habitat. The first story was sent in by a saturation diver. If you don't know what that is, it's the kind of diving job where you don't just go down and come back up. You live under pressure for days or weeks at a time. A steel canister, a habitat, a system of chambers connected to a ship above. You eat there, sleep there, breathe helium-rich gas that makes your voice sound wrong. And when you finally decompress, it can take days. The diver, I'll call him Ethan, said his crew was working on subsea infrastructure, replacing a valve assembly at depth. Not the deepest job in the world, but deep enough that the water outside looked like ink when you turned your lights off. He described the routine as painfully methodical. Suit checks, umbilical checks, communication checks. You don't freelance down there. 1 mistake becomes a report. 2 mistakes become a memorial. Ethan said it was his 3rd day in saturation when it happened. He'd finished a shift, came back to the habitat, peeled off gear, and crawled into his bunk with the feeling of exhaustion that makes you forget your own name. It was quiet, in the way only underwater systems are quiet. Not silent, just filtered. A constant hiss, a low mechanical hum, and the faintest creak of metal as pressure held everything together. He said he was half asleep when he heard it. Knocking. Not inside the chamber. Not from a tool. Not from someone tapping a pipe. From outside. 3 slow taps. A pause. Then, 3 more. Is less than has hone. 1 hash is greater than. Ethan sat up in his bunk and listened. In saturation, you don't get random visitors. The habitat is bolted into a system. The only way in or out is through procedures and locks and people topside coordinating it. He asked his partner in the chamber, a diver named Lewis, if he heard it. Lewis didn't answer right away. Ethan said he could see the stiffness in the way Lewis turned his head, like he was trying not to look scared. Then Lewis said, "Don't say anything." Ethan stared at him. "What do you mean?" Lewis pointed just a small gesture toward the habitat wall. The knocking came again. But this time it wasn't 3 taps. It was too consistent. Tap, 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 like someone counting seconds. Ethan reached for the comms panel and keyed his mic to the surface support. "Control, this is habitat. We're hearing external impact." Static. Then the supervisor's voice, clipped and tired. "Confirm source." Ethan swallowed. "We don't know. It sounds like..." Knocking. There was a pause long enough that Ethan wondered if the supervisor had taken his headset off. Then the supervisor said, "Stand by." The tapping stopped. For a few seconds, the habitat returned to its normal hum. Ethan let out a breath. Lewis didn't. Lewis was still watching the wall like he expected something to peel itself off the metal. Then the tapping came back, but not on the habitat wall. On the hatch. The hatch that led to the transfer lock. The hatch that, if opened at the wrong time, would kill you instantly. Tap. 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 Ethan's pulse thudded in his throat. Because the tapping was coming from the wrong side. Not from inside the lock, but from outside, in open water. Lewis finally spoke, voice low and tight. "That happened to a crew on another spread," he said. "They thought it was a guy in the water. They started cycling the lock, and they almost opened it." Ethan stared at him. "Why would anyone?" Lewis cut him off. "Doesn't matter. Don't touch it." The tapping changed. It became a drag, like fingernails scraping. Slow, deliberate, across the metal. Ethan felt his stomach turn. His mind produced an image he didn't want: something clinging to the hatch, feeling for the seam, learning where the weakness was. He keyed the comms again, voice sharper now. "Control, it's on the hatch. External contact on the hatch." This time, the supervisor replied immediately. "Do not attempt to cycle. Repeat, do not cycle." Ethan's eyes flicked to Lewis. Lewis gave a stiff nod. The supervisor continued, "We have ROV visual." Ethan's mouth went dry. "On what?" Another pause. Then the supervisor said, "We don't have a positive identification." Ethan's skin prickled. "What does that mean?" The supervisor's voice came back quieter, like he'd turned away from other people. "It's on the habitat. It's large." The scraping stopped. And in the silence that followed, Ethan heard something else. Breathing. Not the habitat system. Not a valve hiss. A wet, pulsing sound. Right outside the hatch. Lewis went pale. Ethan could see it even in the harsh artificial lighting. Then over the comms, the supervisor said one sentence that Ethan said he will never forget. "It's trying to mirror the knock pattern back." Ethan didn't understand at first. Then the tapping returned, but it was different. 3 taps. Pause. 2 taps. Pause. 3 taps. It wasn't random. It was communication. Ethan said his brain finally caught up to the most terrifying possibility. Something out there was responding. Not like an animal reacting to vibration, but like something listening and learning. The supervisor ordered them to remain still and conserve oxygen. An ROV would investigate. A secondary ROV would stand by. No cycling. No movement. No unnecessary noise. For the next 20 minutes, Ethan said they sat in the habitat like 2 men hiding in a closet while something paced in the hallway. The tapping came and went. The scraping returned once, then stopped. And finally, everything went quiet. The supervisor came back on comms. "Contact lost. ROV visual negative." Ethan asked what it was. The supervisor said, Probably a large fish interacting with the structure. Probably a large fish trying to mirror knock patterns. Ethan said they finished their job, but he never slept the same in saturation again. Because once you realize something can reach your habitat and touch it and learn from you, you start hearing knocks that aren't there. And even worse, you start wondering how many times something has knocked before, and someone opened the hatch. Story 2. The face in the silt. The second story came from a commercial diver who did inspection and repair work around ports and ship hulls. Not deep ocean saturation, but still dangerous. Because port water is its own kind of nightmare. Low visibility, junk everywhere, fishing line, cables, sharp metal, tires, and the kind of silt that turns your world into a snow globe the second you touch anything. The diver, I'll call him Marco, said his job that day was simple: inspect a section of seabed near a pier where a new pile was being installed. They needed to confirm the substrate and check for debris. Marco said he'd done hundreds of dives like this. You go down, you follow a line, you sweep your light, you feel more than you see. The water that day was especially bad. Visibility was maybe half a meter. When he looked at his own glove, it faded into darkness, a hand's length away. He descended along the line, reached the bottom, and immediately felt the silt rise around his boots. It wasn't just a thin layer. It was deep, like powdered clay. Marco said he started his sweep. Slow, methodical steps. Light moving left to right. Hand feeling for snags. That's when he felt something that didn't belong. A shape. Smooth. Rounded. His glove brushed it, and it shifted slightly in the silt. Marco assumed it was debris, maybe a buoy, maybe a chunk of plastic. So he reached down to grab it. His fingers closed around something that felt wrong. Not metal. Not plastic. Rubbery. He tightened his grip and tried to lift it. It didn't move much, like part of it was buried. He brought his light closer. The beam cut into the silt and revealed a face. Marco said his brain refused to label it at first, because it didn't look like a dead body. It didn't have the pale, drifting look you see in movies. It looked fresh. The skin was a strange gray pink in the light. The mouth was slightly open, and something dark drifted out like smoke. And the eyes were open. Marco let go immediately, recoil so hard he kicked up more silt. His breathing spiked in his mask, loud and fast. He keyed his comms, trying to keep his voice steady. Surface. I have a possible body. The supervisor asked for details. Marco said he could barely talk. He told them the location and asked if he should mark it. The supervisor told him to stay calm and attach a tagline. Marco said he leaned back in, slowly, trying not to churn the silt. He brought the light closer again. And that's when he noticed something that made it worse. The face wasn't attached to a body. It was a mask. Not a Halloween mask. Not a rubber novelty. A diver's hood. A neoprene hood shaped like a head with a clear face panel, except the face panel was shattered. Inside the hood, there was hair. Real hair. Floating. Marco said his stomach dropped because he realized what he was looking at. A diver's headgear, with someone's head still inside it. He tried to back away, but his fin caught on something. He felt tension on his ankle. A line. Thin. Like fishing line or cable. He reached down to free himself, and his glove touched something else. A hand. Not a glove. Not a piece of debris. A human hand. Marco's vision tunneled. He yanked his leg, but the line tightened. He kicked again, and the silt exploded around him, turning the water into complete blindness. He heard his own breathing like a storm. He felt the line pulling, snagging him deeper. Then, something touched his wrist. He couldn't see it. He just felt pressure, like fingers closing around him. Marco screamed into his comms. "Something's got me. I'm tangled. I need..." The supervisor started giving instructions, but Marco said he didn't hear them clearly. All he could think was, the hand. The grip. He slashed at the line with his knife, sawing through whatever was holding him. The tension released suddenly, and he kicked backward hard enough that he slammed into the guideline. He grabbed it and pulled himself up, fast, ignoring the proper pace. His supervisor yelled at him to slow down. Marco didn't. He just climbed the line like his life depended on it because it did. When he broke the surface, he tore his mask off and vomited over the side of the boat. The crew stared at him like he'd come back with something attached. Later, when they sent down an ROV with better cameras, they found the rest. A deceased diver who'd gone missing months earlier, tangled in discarded line and debris. And the hand Marco felt on his wrist wasn't the diver grabbing him. It was his own wrist strap catching and tightening as he panicked. That's what the report said. That's what they told him. But Marco said he knows what it felt like. He knows the difference between pressure and fingers. And he said the most disturbing part wasn't the body. It was the fact that the face in the silt wasn't an accident waiting to be found. It was positioned, upright, like it was looking up, right where divers descend. Like someone had placed it there, to be seen first. Story 3. The thing on the pipeline. The third story came from a commercial diver who did pipeline inspections offshore. He didn't tell me the exact region, only that it was cold water and open sea. He said the job involved checking a section of pipeline for damage after a storm. Simple in theory. Follow the pipe, inspect welds, check supports, report anything unusual. The diver, I'll call him Jonas, said he went down with an ROV nearby for additional camera angles. Visibility was decent for once. Maybe 5 meters. Enough to see the pipe stretching into the dark like a road. Jonas described the pipe as comforting at first. Something solid to hold on to in a world that felt empty. You keep one hand near it, you follow it like a rail, and you tell yourself you're never truly lost. He had been on the line for about 10 minutes when the ROV operator said something strange over comms. Diver, you seeing that?" Jonas asked for clarification. The operator didn't answer immediately. Instead, he said, "Hold position. Keep your light on the pipe." Jonas complied. He aimed his light down the pipeline and waited. A few seconds later, he saw it. Something was attached to the pipeline ahead. At first, he thought it was debris from the storm, a torn net, a bundle of seaweed, maybe insulation ripped loose. But it was moving. Not drifting. Not swaying. Contracting. Like a muscle, Jonas moved closer, slow. His light revealed a pale mass wrapped around the pipe. It had folds, ridges, and a slick shine that caught the beam. He reported it to the surface, trying to keep his voice calm. Possible marine growth on pipe. Large organism. The supervisor asked if it was a hazard. Jonas said he didn't know. Then the ROV operator said, "It's not just growth." Jonas noticed a detail that made his chest tighten. The mass wasn't wrapped randomly. It was arranged, like arms. Not arms, like a human. Arms like something meant to hold. Several thick tendrils anchored to the pipe, and between them, a central body. Jonas stopped at a safe distance, light fixed. And that's when the organism reacted. It tightened. The tendrils squeezed the pipeline like it was testing it. Then, one tendril lifted. Slowly, is less than #0. 6 is greater than, like a hand raising from a table. Jonas felt a surge of primal fear. Not because he believed it was intelligent, but because in that moment, it looked like a deliberate gesture. The tendril reached toward him. Not fast, not attacking, exploring. Jonas backed up a meter. The tendril extended further, like it was matching his movement. The supervisor told him to retreat and maintain distance. Jonas started finning backward along the pipe. The tendril did something that made his stomach drop. It didn't chase him through open water. It slid along the pipeline instead, using the pipe like a track. Jonas realized the organism was anchored. It couldn't swim after him freely, but it could reach. And it was reaching as far as it could. Jonas said the next part is what he can't explain. As he backed away, the ROV operator said, "It's following the weld line." Jonas glanced back at the pipe. The organism's tendril was sliding along the seam, as if it was feeling for imperfections, feeling for weak points. Then the supervisor said something he didn't expect. "Do not touch it. Do not let it touch your umbilical." Jonas looked down and felt cold realization spread through him. His umbilical line, his lifeline, was drifting in the water behind him, and the organism's tendril was angling toward it. Jonas kicked hard to put distance between the line and the pipe. The tendril lifted higher, slow and purposeful. For a second, Jonas said he saw something in the center mass. A dark opening, like a mouth. Not a mouth with teeth. A mouth like a valve. A suction point. The tendril brushed the water near his umbilical. Jonas felt the line tug as if pulled by a current. Then it tugged again, harder. He yelled into comms and swam upward toward the ascent line, pulling slack with him. The supervisor ordered an immediate abort. The ROV operator shouted, "It's got the line! It's got the line!" Jonas felt panic take over. Because if something wrapped his umbilical, even if it didn't cut it, it could pin him to the seabed. He grabbed the ascent line and hauled himself up. The umbilical tightened behind him like someone holding the other end. For a moment, Jonas thought he was going to be dragged back down. Then, the tension released. He almost shot upward from the sudden slack. He stabilized and kept climbing, heart pounding. When he got topside, the crew examined his umbilical. There were marks on the outer sheath, Not cuts. Not abrasion from metal. Suction bruises. Perfect circular patterns, like something had latched on and let go. The official report called it unknown marine organism interaction, is less than hashone. 1 hash is greater than. They recommended future inspections be done with ROV only in that segment. Jonas said he never went back down there again. Because the ocean is full of life, and most of it wants nothing to do with you. But every once in a while, you meet something that doesn't just notice you. It tests you. It learns your weak points. And it reaches for the one thing you can't afford to lose. Commercial divers do work most of us never think about. They weld and cut and repair in places where a simple mistake becomes permanent. And the disturbing part isn't always what they see. It's what they feel, what they hear, what touches the outside of their world, and then disappears before anyone can explain it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you have a story from underwater work, commercial diving, offshore rigs, ports, salvage, send it in. Until next time, stay safe. And remember, the ocean doesn't have to be haunted to be horrifying.